My presentation is about cyberspaces, both public and individual and private. So, think about the web today, as we know it, is the largest public and private space in history. And to understand the immediacy of it and its impact, let me walk you down a different road about the web, and imagine yourselves walking down a dark street. You have a sense that there is some degree of security. It's dark, but there are police, there are people in other buildings. Something happens, somebody might call the authorities. And if you see something untoward, you can turn around and leave. You can duck into an alley. However, as we transition into a dark street in cyberspace, all notions of security fade away. A dark street in cyberspace is a place where you're completely vulnerable. You can be held hostage. You can be radicalized. You can be robbed. You can even be killed. They can turn off a pacemaker, for example, from cyberspace. And of course, in cyberspace, there are people lurking for people to rob, to radicalize, etc. So, what is cyberspace? Marshall McLuhan, a Canadian communications expert and philosopher, said that we are an extension, our technology is an extension of ourselves. And in some respects, I think this, more than anything else, defines cyberspace. Technically, it is a community of websites rather than a single entity, a singularity. Cyberspace is filled with all kinds of alternative realities that define public and private spaces. Cyberspace is a place where you can't see it, you can't sense its dimensions, you cannot feel it, but it's certainly there. We have to understand that the pace of technology is changing our lives and it's growing exponentially. But cyberspace has allowed the average citizen to participate in the public sphere. For example, Facebook is both a public and a private space as the individual decides. And just to give you some statistics, as the first quarter of 2017, Facebook had 1.9 billion monthly active users. In Facebook, you can create your own space. You can create your own circle. It can be as big or as small as you want it. And it is entirely up to you how far you want to go and how many people you want to let in. On the other hand, Twitter, it is truly the first massive public space. There are 320 million active users on Twitter. And it's creating a public space in which, for example, potential leaders, well-known personalities, and a variety of state and public officials can communicate directly with their electorate. It may even bring down a presidency, depending on how it's used. Social media and cyberspace have become another mechanism for revolution. You think about it, Tahrir Square was in large measure created by social media. Young people working their computers, their iPads, their other mobile devices managed to get thousands of people in the square and topple a government. Right now, for example, in Saudi Arabia, women have very limited rights, as you can see from the slide. And women in Saudi Arabia, some women are trying to instigate a quiet revolution, such as this young woman, who was driving a car in Saudi Arabia, who took a picture of herself and using Instagram, sent it around the world. She was, of course, arrested by the Saudi authorities. And what's interesting is hundreds and thousands of people in cyberspace have mobilized to support her. And it may be the very thing that people know about her might ultimately save her life. A lot of things can happen in cyberspace, and one important thing is, your personality on cyberspace. Who are you? Who do you want to be? You can mask your identity, and at the same time, Big Brother is also watching you on cyberspace. Because of the notion of cyber terrorism, because of how cyberspace is used, governments are increasingly establishing a security presence on cyberspace. And this, of course, is a direct challenge to democracy. And this will become more prevalent in the future as more and more people, not so much more and more people, but as cyberspace becomes more influential politically. The internet effectively is the new public space. And if you think about what is the internet? We think about Google, we think about Wikipedia, CNN, YouTube, and other similar websites. However, cyberspace is like an iceberg. There's a lot more that you don't see, as is the case with an iceberg. So there are three dimensions, if you like, in cyberspace. There is the World Wide Web, there is what we call the deep web, and there is the dark web. So the deep web is basically technical. Government reports, conference proceedings, medical records. They can be hacked, but it's not as critical. The dark web, on the other hand, offers a greater challenge. The dark web has, you can use cryptocurrency to buy drugs, to buy weapons. You can buy a missile on the dark web. You can buy a helicopter on the dark web. There are people that you can hire on the dark web that will hack down a company or even a government agency. And you wonder who has created the dark web. Well, it was created by the American intelligence community as an ultimately secure space for them to maintain contact with their agents who were underground. Media sources use the dark space as a place where people can leave tips anonymously. And this is its strength, but of course, pirates, hackers, have taken over the dark web. So, cyberspace versus public space, what brings the question is, what is all this? What is life on social media, in effect? We think about it, data, analytics, big data, I should say, and analytics provide opportunities, provide technologies that can effectively illuminate the dark street, my metaphor earlier. And of course, this will lead to a whole new engagement with technology. Innovations such as virtual reality, augmented reality, offer new ways to engage in public spaces. If you think about it, it has already begun. There's 170 million people who use virtual reality in one form or another. Ultimately, virtual reality is where physical space and cyberspace intersect. You can, have the goggles, and later on you won't even need the goggles, where you can be in a physical space and at the same time be in a cyberspace. These advances will impact entertainment, travel, health, social interaction, politics, and most importantly, education. Education in cyberspace is a new phenomenon that creates wonderful opportunities. So at this point, I would like to invite you to experience the future of cyberspace of the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Center for Hellenic Studies at Simon Fraser University. It is a place where you can experience the Greek language in North America and in China. It is a place where you can travel in time, You can go backwards and see layers of civilization through archaeology, a virtual dig. You can go forward and experience Greek civilization. You can also experience Byzantium. You can experience modern Greece. You can also experience Greek literature and film. You can experience contemporary Athens through apps like we have made, like Amazing Athens. You can experience the plight of refugees in 1922. And you can experience the plight of refugees forward in time in 2017. You can also experience the environment and how it's changing and what you want to do with it. You can experience a great many things because the internet is changing our world. It's changing how we perceive private and public spaces. And at the Center for Hellenic Studies, we're building a digital and public space, a new agora. And this was only possible, I have to say, with the support of the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, particularly that of Andreas Drakopoulos, who has been an inspiration, and of course, the support that we receive financially, but more importantly, the ideas that he has passed on to us, that we have been able to turn them into a reality, and for that I want to thank him. Also, I wanted to thank the foundation for this amazing structure and this whole cultural center. And of course, I want to thank my very good friend, Stelios, who has been a major part of organizing this conference. Thank you very much.
And now coming up, we have a conversation on architecture and the invention of public space. I would like to request the moderator and the panelists to come on stage.